Hi, and welcome to the Changing Perspectives podcast, the show where we discuss a variety of topics, including grief, parenting, pop culture, and relationships. Join us and explore a number of changing perspectives. We're your hosts, Jenni and Josh Brennan. Hi, Jenni.
Did you change our description without talking to me?
What are you talking about?
Did you? I feel like we don't usually say pop culture in the beginning.
Are you serious?
Yes.
There's a bunch of Changing Perspectives fans laughing their butt off right now.
Do you always say that?
I've said it for probably 10 episodes.
So you did change it?
Yes, with your permission and your suggestion.
I don't think that's true.
It was totally your suggestion.
But you took out like the mental health piece, the health piece?
Health and wellness piece.
Oh, but we do talk about like mental health.
Yeah. Do you want to add it back in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Instead of pop culture?
I think pop culture should be at the end.
Okay. We can talk about that offline.
Okay. All right.
You just proved you don't listen to me.
I don't. Usually I have my phone and I'm multitasking, but you specifically yelled at me not to. So
yeah.
Don't you wish you hadn't now?
No, that's fine. How are you?
Okay. How are you?
Welcome to episode 75, everybody. We've been talking about this for a couple episodes now, sort of teasing it. We're excited to bring to you our second interview with the amazing Gila Pfeffer. And we'll shout out all her links and how you can find her, and very exciting news about her. But before we launch into that and play the episode, the interview for you, we wanted to remind everyone to head on over to Changing Perspectives Online. That's a new web address, by the way. Jenni has been working tirelessly to give everyone a brand new website. It is great. I was telling her that she should be a web designer, but you didn't like that.
No. It's and mad props to anybody that is, because it is tedious and time consuming, but also kind of fun because it's also you get to tap into your creative side. Yeah. And you can kind of disconnect from anything that's worrying you or stressing you out because you can't think about that while you're doing sort of the tedious stuff.
Right.
But no, I would never want to do that for someone else. Happy to help give ideas,
yeah.
but
it looks great.
Thank you. I'm pretty happy with it. It's the way I envisioned it. So, and it was exciting to be able to like bring that little piece of my sort of professional page and sort of give it its own life elsewhere that has grown that much, that, on all of our podcast content is there. So I've always felt like it's hard to find our podcast content, right? Like, which episode is it? And it's kind of scrolling through the titles. It's hard. So I have broken them up into the 5 categories that I thought we had, which is probably why I picked up on your categories at the beginning, because I just did the website.
Yeah.
And I went through our YouTube page and categorized everything into similar playlists. So we've got sort of 5 categories. So there is grief, parenting, relationships, mental health, and wellness, because we do talk about that a lot.
That's true.
And pop culture and like extra content.
Yeah. So we can talk about the intro offline.
I think it should match everything.
Okay. Well, the Changing Perspectives Online website is really great. You can actually stream and play our podcast episodes right from the website. You don't have to, it doesn't take you anywhere else. That was pretty fancy.
If you want to, though, there's also a magic link that will take you to our podcast homepage on whatever player you listen to. So if you're Spotify, if you're Google Play,
iTunes,
if you're Stitcher,
Apple.
whatever, there's so many of them now. Yeah. You just click that magic link and it will bring you the link to everything. So that's on the home, that's on like the main category page for each of the podcasts.
Some other exciting stuff too. The YouTube channel, our Changing Perspectives YouTube channel, now has our streamed videos.
Correct.
Up there. So if you didn't get a chance to catch those in real time, or you're not really on Facebook that much, you can see those videos on YouTube, which is great. And you can also sign up for the newsletter. Again, a reminder, head on over to the website to sign up for Jenni's newsletter and be amongst the first fans to see some fresh content, and also possibly some contests and other fun stuff going on.
Correct.
Merchandise update, free shipping, everyone, for Changing Perspectives stuff, gear.
So tomorrow and
Tomorrow
14th and the 15th?
the next day. So September 15th and 16th.
Oh, okay. I was off a day.
Yes. Well, no, you're not off a day because this is being released on Monday.
Okay.
This today that you're hearing this is September 14th. Free shipping starts tomorrow, the 15th, and goes through the 16th. So 2 days of free shipping for Changing Perspectives gear. As a reminder, everybody, we will be reading brand new iTunes reviews over the year. So if you have not done so, please rate and review us on iTunes, and we will read those ones over the year. And folks, as you know, Changing Perspectives is brought to you by BetterHelp.com. That's BetterHelp.com. BetterHelp is an online counseling resource who makes professional counseling accessible, affordable, and convenient. They offer 4 ways to get licensed counseling through video sessions, phone call, live chat, messaging. And as everyone knows all too well, these are very challenging times, and the broad expertise of the BetterHelp Counselor Network could provide anyone struggling with life's challenges the help they need, anytime, anywhere. Visit BetterHelp.com/changingperspectives. After signing up, you will be matched with a counselor within 24 hours or less. Again, visit BetterHelp.com/changingperspectives. Okay, Jenny, how great and fun was it to talk to Gila? So we just play this interview rather, so everyone can hear how great she is.
We should. So everyone should just sort of like dig in, get yourself a cup of coffee, cup of tea, whatever it is. Pop in your headphone, do something because it's I think we chatted with her for a long time and we covered really so many topics, right? We talked about pandemic, but we talked about it sort of from the perspective of America versus the UK, because she's an American. She's born, raised in America. Her family is still here in America, but she has lived in the UK for 11 years. So sort of talking about the different responses to the pandemic, both previously and also for the upcoming school year. So that sort of multi-country sort of lens. So that was interesting. We talked a lot about breast cancer awareness and her passion about that. And I feel like we talked about a lot of other things.
A little bit of TikTok,
social media, supporting each other. So it was really a lovely conversation and really picked up right where we kind of left off a little over a year ago when we had her on before. So definitely a great interview. Loved having her on. We'll definitely have her back on again. We also talked about her new book.
Yes.
She's got a new book. So
I'm going to be sharing a link in the show notes to the Amazon page for her book so you can buy it. It's called I Just Want to Hang Out With You. It's basically a collection of essays from amazing moms and writers. And we'll let Gila tell you all about it. Yeah. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Gila Pfeffer. Hi, Gila.
Hi, guys.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us, Gila Pfeffer, everybody. It's been way too long. We were just talking before we hit record, fourth wall breaking, which we always do on the Changing Perspectives podcast. But we were talking, it was like 30 or 40 episodes ago where we had you on. So it's been...
That's crazy.
Crazy.
I remember it was a nighttime. For me, it was nighttime. I'm in London, and it was dark and it was cold. And now it is light and warm. So I guess it's kind of the opposite of how we spoke last time. So it has been that long, and a lot of things have happened between the last time we spoke and now, haven't they?
Oh my goodness!
Yes.
It runs with pandemic. We're not going to say the word because everyone's had enough of it.
Yeah, right. May or may not rhyme with Schmovid-19.
Good Lord.
So, well, thanks again for joining us. And everybody, Gila is coming to us from the UK, but you were in the US for a lot of the summer, Gila, right? Tell us about your summer.
Yes. So, my husband and I are both American, and our 4 kids are also American born, but we moved here 11 years ago when they were just 2, 4, 6, and 8. And now they are, for those of you who are good at math, 11 years older than that. And, part of living overseas means we don't get to see our families anywhere near as often as we'd like to. We missed out on a lot of milestones, little things like birthday parties and Jewish holidays that we're used to spending together. So the one Jewish holiday that we always make sure to be in the States for is Passover. We go to Miami, where my whole side of the family, his whole side of the family are all there, and it's wonderful. That did not happen this year, obviously. And so we were on the fence about whether or not to travel this summer. Most of our friends in the UK either stayed put in the UK, which is highly unusual. People in the UK make a run for it in August because they want some sunshine. And some of them went to places that the government said that they were allowed to go, Spain, France, Italy, only to be told in the middle of their holidays that they weren't allowed to be there and they had to get out. So we, as American citizens, were allowed to travel to the U.S., and I should specify that we were in New York and New Jersey only, not the whole U.S., where it was, we deemed it safe, and we just spent tons of time with our family there. My kids hadn't seen their cousins, aunts, and uncles in over a year.
Oh my gosh.
It was pretty amazing.
Wow.
That sounds great.
It was
sounds
amazing
like
in its non-amazingness.
Right. Well, it sounds like it's something that you so needed, right? Like you and your whole family needed to have that time with people that you don't see, especially after the crazy spring that we had.
You just, you're not only, we're double layer isolated. We're isolated, everyone sort of was on lockdown for however many months. The UK was quite late to lock down. So that was, I guess, looking back, aside from being irresponsible of the government, it was, we had more time with our friends and people on the ground, but we have zero family here. So for us being isolated, not only literally in the house, but not near any of our siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, all that, while the kids are home and no school, that was tough. And we actually made a bar mitzvah for my youngest in June. And this was the first bar mitzvah we made where not a single family member could be there. It was still beautiful and meaningful, and it was this tiny little thing in our backyard, and it was quite memorable. And it was probably one of the first events that was allowed to take place post-lockdown. Like, until the last minute, we didn't know what we were going to do, but it was very noticeable that family wasn't there. So part of the reason we went to the U.S. was to have like a post sort of celebration for the bar mitzvah boy, and to drop my oldest son at university, as one does.
Oh gosh.
In the middle of summer. We can get back to that later. The summer was great. It was interesting to note the differences between the U.S. and the U.K. in terms of policy and masks and COVID and all that. But ultimately, the kids know, and I keep stressing this to them, how lucky we are that we A, got to travel, and B, got to see our families.
Right. Yeah. I remember, we're very close with my sister and her husband and their 4 children. And the first time we saw them after lockdown was sort of somewhat lifted. I don't know, we're still kind of in Massachusetts. We're still somewhat sort of locked down, I guess. I think technically we're not supposed to have gatherings of more than 10, or unless we wear masks. I don't know. The details are a little foggy. The rules. I don't really know. I need very clear rules. But the first time we saw them, I think it was probably 2 months or so that we had gone, maybe 3 months.
Yeah.
It was just, I just remember the emotion behind that, and how we decided, like, if we're doing this again, if we're locking down again, we're locking down like with each other, because we can't do that again. And I cannot imagine what it would be like to be an ocean apart from your family, right, during that lockdown, and having the sort of history of being able to travel and share these special family moments together, and not have that be able to happen. That's just so sad. And I'm so glad that you were able to go and spend some time with them this summer.
Yeah, I mean, and in keeping with the name of your podcast, Changing Perspectives, I always try, sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder, but I always try to keep things in perspective and to say, my son was upset at first. Why am I not having the big party that my siblings are having and family can't be here? But we said, well, you're getting more than your friends who had bar mitzvahs in March, April, and May. They got 0. They had Zooms only. We were able to have about 14 people at a time in our backyard. Like, we gave people time slots, come through, drink a shot of whiskey, wish us mazel tov, and head on out. And he had a few friends over. And so that was that, putting it into perspective, saying you have more than they had. And also the fact that I'm just trying to remind them that as long as these are our biggest problems, we're doing pretty okay.
Right.
If your biggest problem is you didn't get the big party, we're doing pretty okay. And that stems from, I have my own experience with, I I'm a breast cancer survivor. My parents both died of cancer quite young, leaving behind 5 kids. So for me, I guess I just see things differently. Like things, however annoying and hard they are, I I know they could always be worse. They have been worse.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
to give you an example of something that was worse, but I still forced myself to keep in perspective. My baby sister got married on Sunday night in Israel, and I couldn't be there.
Oh.
So that blew.
Mm-hmm.
2 of my sisters managed to get this from the U.S. I do not know how. They pulled off some miracle. They were in and
Wow.
out, zip, zip for the wedding. I watched the whole thing live stream. But, my kids and I and husband sat around with a bottle of champagne and our kitchen table in our pajamas, watching my baby sister get married, who's an orphan. You think,
right.
I've been
Yeah.
through so much in my life. Now I'm finally getting married, and now I'm going to have a big celebration, but I'm not. They still had a beautiful celebration. They had family representation on some level, but I was getting a lot of messages from my friends throughout saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, look, the main thing is that she's happy. I'd rather she marry the right guy and me not be there than marry the wrong guy, which she almost did last year, and be
Okay.
there."
Okay.
So it's changing perspectives. That's what you're talking about. We're talking about, let's take a step back and see, is this really bad, or is this just not what I was expecting, and how can I work around it?
I think that's a really healthy approach to have. And we did try to sort of take that approach once we sort of got over the initial shock of like, oh, this is our new lives right now, and we're locked down, and we're sort of here, all 4 of us on top of each other all day long, trying to work, trying to do school, but then really trying to find like the good in that, right? And try to find the positives that have come from that, and see it as an opportunity in some ways for our families. And I will say, I woke up this morning, so we're recording this on a Tuesday, and I woke up realizing that this is the last Tuesday that we're not getting up at like 5 a.m. and starting a school day, because the kids start school next Tuesday. And I'm going to miss it, right? We've spent 6 months kind of having this somewhat laid back atmosphere. School was completely remote once they shut down. So there was no like hours that they had to start or anything like that. And I feel like this chapter is coming to a close, and I'm realizing how much I sort of enjoyed parts of our time together, right? Like it feels like life is going to start kind of moving 100 miles an hour again. And I kind of liked that slower pace.
Well, Jenni, you're coming dangerously close to talking about what Gila talks about in her new book, which is really exciting, which we will get to a little bit later. But Gila, I wanted to go back to the story about your baby sister for a second, because you just wrote your recent blog article about your sister and the day she was born. And
yes,
I just have to tell you, that was so fun to read and so sweet. And what was her reaction to reading that or getting that? Can you tell us about that? That was in celebration of her upcoming wedding, correct?
Yeah. So I think I wrote that back in July, and it was still at a point where I wasn't sure if I was going to make it to the wedding or not. And I just knew I'd been wanting to write her birth story for a long time because I was directly involved in it. And I just thought, I'm just going to write this for her as a pre-wedding gift. And I started off by saying, I don't know what to get my baby sister for a wedding gift. She and her now husband are already quite established people. They've been working a long time. They share an apartment. So what do you get people like that? And I thought, she's never had this story documented. She's 29 years old. She was 3 when our mom died. So she's heard the story, but she's never had it to hold in her hand. So I did send it to her before I published it on
nice.
On my website. Yeah, I said, here is a gift to you. I'm about to publish it. I also wanted to ask her if it was okay about her life.
Right.
Of course, so publish it. So if anybody wants to read that, I think that is actually if you go to my Instagram page, Gila Pfeffer, in my profile, that's the link that I have up. I think, I'm not sure. It's the most recent post on my blog, but I loved writing it, and I loved giving that to her, and I loved that she loved it. What I couldn't know then, back when I published it in July, was that her wedding would come to pass and it would be there. So, but we'll always have the story published.
Yeah, right. No, it was really fun to read and really sweet. And I envy your connection to being so much older than her. I think it gave you clearly a different perspective on life with
you had more time with your parents and being there and having her have somebody that she looks up to have that connection to her birth story. That's just such a cool thing to offer her. That's really cool. And it was fun to read. So I recommend everybody reading that article. It was
Thank
really
you.
great. Yeah.
I'm relatively new to the writing game. I'm only at it for, a few years. I say relatively new because at this point in my life, I could have been doing it for 20 years, but I haven't. Mm-hmm. So I finally have found my voice, and my voice will always be equal measures funny, relatable, and poignant, emotional. And the balance I try to strike. And I don't just write it and publish it. I work pretty hard on my pieces, and I spend a lot of time editing it and getting the tone just right, because I want to take people on a journey and show them that life really is a balance of, it's not all good, it's not all bad, it's everything mixed together, and it's okay to laugh and cry at the same time, because that's what our whole lives have been, laughing and crying at the same time. And laughing at the sad parts, which gets us through. So I'm glad that you found it fun to read. I hope to put more up there soon. I've got a lot of ideas brimming. I just need to get everyone out of quarantine and back to school. So
Yep. I know.
2020 is like the year of laughing and crying together, right? I mean, I think that's pretty much what you would see if you looked it up, the definition in Webster's, the laughing and crying year. You just talked about school, and Jenny had mentioned it too. We're getting ready to send the boys back next week. Tell us about school in the UK for this fall. What's the plan? What's happening? Maybe we don't have enough time for this. Is that a whole other episode?
And I don't know if you allow foul language on your podcast, so I'm not going to say what I really think.
We are clean, but we can bleep it out. So just go.
It's a beep show. Essentially, the UK government from day one, and I should preface this by saying we're very happy living here. We love a lot of things about living here, but something about the way they've handled this whole COVID situation has been always on the back foot, always late to the party, always getting it wrong, and then trying to backpedal. So with schools, the Prime Minister announced back in June that he wanted everyone back in school full time, certainly come September, and that's what they've made happen. There don't seem to be a lot of rules in place. So we just came back from the US, where all of our nieces and nephews are little, so we learned about how these kids are going back to school, wearing masks, plexiglass around them, distance, in little pods, lots of measures in place. Here, the UK government initially wanted to try to get herd immunity going. That was their initial plan in early March. And when that didn't work and the death toll was spiking like crazy, they locked everyone down. So along those same lines, they're trying to reopen the economy by sending people back to school. And there are not a lot of rules in place. For elementary school kids, they're just going back as normal, washing their hands more, and I think fewer kids on buses. My kids are all in high school, the ones that are still in school. And only last week or the week before was there advice from the government that high school kids only should wear masks in communal areas. So on public transport, it's already mandatory, and a lot of kids take public transportation. London's a big bustling city, so it's an excellent transportation system. My kids take either city buses or city buses dedicated to their school. So it'll look like a London double-decker bus, but the number on it will indicate this is just for your school. It'll take you right to your school. No one else is allowed on it. They have limited the numbers on regular public buses. They've limited it less on the school designated buses, and they're required to wear masks. But you've met teenagers, and you've met excited teenagers going back on a bus to school for the first time in 6 months. I don't see how these kids are going to keep the masks on the buses, even though they've had enough time to be conditioned to do so. And they're supposed to wear them in communal areas, so like hallways, lunch areas. That's really it. Our school has taken extra measures. They're trying to take the government guidance and also mix it with things that they think will make kids be safer. One-way systems, limiting contact, requiring us to buy, extra reading materials and books so that they're not sharing equipment. It's a big school. My kids are in a 2,000 kids school.
Wow.
So they're doing their best. Exactly. They're keeping each year in its own pod, but each year is still 300 kids. My kids haven't gone back yet because we were in the US. The price we pay for visiting our family is we are now home for 2 weeks since landing. So that finishes, I think on this Friday. So they can't go back to school till Monday. So they will have missed the first week of school. There've already been reports across the UK, but specifically in our kids' school, of kids who've tested positive and who've been sent home. The numbers are up again in the UK, but that seems to be concentrating more now on 17 to 21-year-olds. All of the kids who are cooped up, who have had enough and are just out in, I guess, right now you're allowed to gather in groups of 30 outside, 30 or less. It's unclear who the 30 are. It might be 30 from 2 households, but I don't know about your household. We don't have 15 people in it. So unless your household is busy. So what does that school look like? I couldn't actually tell you because my kids aren't there yet. From what I can see, our school, and it's an excellent school, they're trying, but a lot of the parents don't have a lot of high hopes. The parents are walking around like major doubters going, oh, they're going to be home by next week. And if they are, I guess we're ready based on our experience last year. Right. But at the same time, it's terrible. I think it's terrible. Terrible for parents, working parents and non-working parents, but it's really terrible for kids. I've never seen my kids so desperate to go back to school. My boys are like, can you email them and see if we can go back today? So I emailed them. They're like, we're really sorry. It's got to be 14 days. And they'll ask me, can you email them again? I'm like, you can't go to school. I can't believe we're having this conversation. But I'm like, in what alternate universe are you begging me to go and I'm telling you can't?
So weird.
It is weird. It is weird. And we'll see how it goes. I think if we've all learned anything from these last 6 months, is that things are not the way we're used to them being. We really have limited control. We have to roll with the punches. The punches are hard, not because they're physically hard. It's the uncertainty. So everyone's got a lot of anxiety and a lot of it's just uncertainty. You just want to kind of know what tomorrow is, and we're used to knowing what tomorrow is. So you can call me next week and I'll tell you how back to school is. But so far it looks like my kids are outside playing basketball right now. It's PE.
Yeah,
there you go. There you go. I don't even think our boys. I don't think our boys are allowed to have PE. I think they're PE. I don't even know. I don't know. They start school next week, and
There's so much unknown.
I was saying to a friend that usually this is my favorite time of year. I love buying the school supplies and doing a color-coded calendar for them and all of that stuff. And I'm like, I haven't bought a single thing. I think they have some clothes to wear to school. And I don't know what our daily schedule looks like. I don't know what time pickup or drop off is. I don't know what the pickup or drop off policy is. I don't really know what their schedule is like on their virtual days. So they're in school 2 days a week and then home 2 full days a week. I think my high schooler is in front of the computer for 7 straight hours. Like live streamed classes, right? Yeah. Which he could do now on like a video game. I'm sure he'd be fine with 7 hours in front of a computer for that, but 7 hours for like honors math, honors English, honors science, and then history and Spanish. That's a long day in front of a computer. And our middle schooler, that plan, I don't even know what he's doing yet. And then Wednesdays, they have some sort of half-day hybrid. So we're a week out, and I have no idea. And that is hard, right? Because people like to have control. I'm a planner. That's how I've always managed my anxiety. And you're right. These past 6 months have taught us, wow, there's a lot out of our control. And so how can we sort of manage our anxiety in other ways and just kind of roll with it and figure it out? And I just keep saying, we figured it out, right? We made it these 6 months. It was hard. Maybe it's going to get harder again, but we'll get through it. There will be another side to this. This is not how it's always going to be. I hope.
Yeah, I wrote a tweet this morning. I forgot exactly what I wrote, but I'll paraphrase something like, is anyone else finding this part of the pandemic harder than the first 6 months? Because I guess it's like sort of, you can make an analogy to parenthood where you think, if I could just get through the newborn phase, everything else is going to be so easy. And then you find out that they're toddlers. And if I could just get through the toddler phase, the next stage. And now I've got teenagers and I'm like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm getting here. It just gets different. So nothing has gotten easier. It's almost like by gaining back some of our freedoms, we're in this gray area. When we were in lockdown, it was very clear. You stay home, You don't go out. You order
Yes.
everything in. If you have to go to work because you are an essential worker, then that's what you have to do. And kudos to those people, because that, I guess you guys, that's exhausting on another level of anxiety altogether. But you just had more clarity, and we were all in the same boat. Now,
Yeah.
at any given time, like, I'm in quarantine. My friends keep calling me and asking how I'm doing. I just found out, my really close friend told me that her daughter's school, she's in what's called a college. It's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like a private, for the last 2 years of high school. If you don't want to be in a traditional high school, you go to this place called a college, where they just focus on getting you through the exams. So it's purely utilitarian. There's like no school spirit stuff. It's just, we're gonna get you to where you need to go.
Yep.
Study this. And because they're private and small, I guess they have to be a lot more strict and careful with such things. And my friend got a phone call. Somebody in one of your daughter's classes tested positive. She's got to go home for 2 weeks. They said, don't bother testing her, whether she's positive or negative. She can't come back. 2 weeks. This kid just started school. She's 17. She started school on Friday. She's not home for 2 weeks.
Wow. Yeah, and that is what, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens for us too.
So whatever you think you don't know now, I think it's just going to keep on happening. And people talk about gaps in learning. I'm like, so what? Who cares about gaps in learning? You know how much more they're learning just by living through this? You know how resourceful they're becoming? You know how much they're learning from Googling things and from YouTube, and how to change direction quickly and how to improvise. They're learning that too. And also, the gaps in learning will apply across the board. It's not like one country is ahead of another country. No one's in flipping school. Everyone's struggling.
And really, the gaps that we're talking about in learning, I don't know about the UK system, but here in America, we're really teaching kids in public schools to an exam, not necessarily transferable life skills, right? Like, these are not really important life skills. We're not teaching them how to like balance checkbooks, pay rent, vote, be an informed citizen, right? We're teaching them like how to study the American Revolutionary War and figure out
useful.
Yeah. Figure out like geometry and stuff.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Just watch
That's what I'm saying.
So it's interesting, right? Yeah, they could learn it from Hamilton. I think like the social emotional piece, I mean, clearly I'm biased, I'm a therapist, but I feel like that's so much more important, and it's okay for us to be focusing on that for the kids right now, and letting go of the education gap, because we'll be able to figure that out, right? There's time for that. But the social emotional piece is huge.
They can look it up online. I just feel like anything that can be looked up online. Think about all the things that you as an adult can teach yourself to do now, just because you have access to the internet. You can sign up for a masterclass and learn how to do anything. So, and I understand that there are certain fundamentals of education that create neural pathways in children's brains and teach them how to think critically and analytically. All that, I'm not, I'm not casting that aside as unimportant, but I'm saying, in terms of information, at some point they'll be able to know whatever it is they want to know. So how are we going to send these kids off into the world as fully formed, good corporate citizens who are ready to contribute to society, who have compassion, who know how to interact with people? Like, we've got older kids, but what about people who've got kids who are 3, 4, 5, just learning how to share and interact with other people, and all the social cues that you get as a little kid? I can't imagine what it's like to help your kid navigate through that when they're just sitting at home, and how maybe you're being more strict to your kid at home, but they look out the window and they see the kids in the cul-de-sac down the road or having a bouncy castle party. How do you explain that? So I don't think anybody gets off the situation scot-free. I don't think anybody's having an easy time in their own way. And I'm very careful actually on my social media not to write things like, some people will say, oh, you're not a parent, you couldn't understand. Oh, tell me how tired you are, you don't have kids. No, you can be tired and not have kids. You can be exhausted in many ways that have nothing to do with kids in general, but specifically now. So I think we all just need to remember that, let's give each other a break.
Yes.
Right.
And wake up every day, and at the end of the day, say, I've gotten through that day.
Yes, give each other a break and give ourselves a break too, right?
Correct.
Right. bring up a good point, Gila. It's not really a gap of knowledge. We're just replacing it with different knowledge.
Yeah.
Like our 11-year-old will tell you exactly what coronavirus is versus COVID-19. Like he knows exactly that COVID-19 is a different virus strain, and we'll correct people when someone says, "Oh, coronavirus." He goes, "Do you mean COVID-19?" And they can define herd immunity, and like they understand what's going on. They've taken in knowledge and learned during this time that we would never have expected them to learn. So your point about different knowledge is really, that's huge, because it's not a gap. It's we've experienced 2020 and they've learned some stuff for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In ways that we haven't, and that we aren't. We're fully formed adults, so we're equipped to deal with this. However, we're equipped to deal with this. They're figuring it out, and they're going through a lot of milestones and life changes while figuring it out. And I think I wrote a tweet. A lot of my tweets I migrate over to Instagram if I think that it'll suit my Instagram audience. And I wrote a tweet, again, I'll paraphrase, something along the lines of, I know my kids haven't been in school for the past 3 months. I guess this would have been in June or July, but my kids haven't been in school, but they've learned more in the past 3 months than they would have in however many years of schooling. And I wasn't just making a joke. I really believe that. And that post got a lot of comments and a lot of engagement. And a few people saying, "What, do you hate teachers? Why are you so anti-teacher?" No, I freaking love teachers. I think teachers should get paid 50 times the amount that they do. But I really, really think that. But I just don't view learning as something that is you're required to memorize and then spit back on a test and demonstrate your ability to answer in exactly the way that you're being asked. I think knowledge comes from a lot of places. And what lockdown has done is it's given kids an opportunity to figure out other ways to learn. My kids are experimenting in the kitchen. Do I love that? No. Is it annoying? Sure. But I'm finally stepping aside myself and saying, okay, don't be the parent that tells them not to play in the kitchen. Go. And my now 13-year-old has made us dinner a few times. That's great knowledge. That's knowledge.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And there's science in that too. Cooking is science. Every science is all around you. And I was listening to this podcast. It was a TED Talk. I'm sure you've heard it. His name is Ken. Oh gosh, Sir Ken. I'm going to get his last name wrong. Livingston, maybe. He's a big guy in education. He just died, and it's one of the top 10 most listened to TED Talks. If you Google top 10 most listened to TED Talks, this guy, Sir Ken something. Someone look it up while I'm talking.
I'm looking it up.
He died in late August, and so TED reissued this TED Talk of his, and he talks about education and how everyone's just gotten it all wrong, and how instead of making it so information based and rigid and exam centric, they should be leaning more into things like dance and art. He's like, in the hierarchy of learning, there's math, science, and English. Those always come first. And then even in the arts, he said there's a hierarchy. Somehow, like, fine arts is more important than dance and drama. And he said it just shouldn't be that way. And it's a beautifully given TED Talk. It's funny. He's so spot on. It just makes you sort of cry for the education systems that are like, why aren't our kids being taught that way, or why aren't they being allowed to learn that way, or finding out what they're good at? So
is it Ken Robinson, Sir Ken Robinson?
That's it.
Yeah, he had a few TED Talks. Do schools kill creativity?
That's the one.
Fascinating. Yeah, I want to listen to that.
Listen to that, everybody. Everybody listening to this. After you listen to everything,
we'll post it in the link.
Changing perspective.
He has a few. How to escape education's death valley.
Yeah. I think during lockdown, it was the first time that we had our kids out of the school environment and in our own school environment. And that means that they're going to learn whatever they're exposed to at home. Right. And that's a very different learning experience. Sure, they can do the homework and they can do the Zoom school, they can do all that, but they're taking on board a lot more. And also you have more face time with them. You can say more things than that you maybe wouldn't have had time to before. You can discuss something that's happening in the world, current events, get their take on it. There was just more time.
Absolutely.
That's not a bad thing.
No, it was a great thing. We had so much more time for family dinners, right? Because sports locked down, youth sports. So they missed the end of their basketball season, their entire spring sports season, their entire summer season. And I don't know what's happening with fall. They're doing something, but not their typical football thing. But so we had nights free to like sit down at the table. Actually, we built as a family, we built a new kitchen island, and that's where we have so many of our meals now. Yeah, like we got a lot of well, I say I designed it, but my oldest and Josh actually like built it with their hands.
Talk about figuring out and teaching yourself what to do from YouTube, because that's exactly what it was.
You built a kitchen island from YouTube.
We did. Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And our oldest, I could hear him in there. I could hear him in the kitchen being like, "Dad, you need to double measure that. I don't think that's right." Like he learned how to be like a foreman. He was great.
Was definitely better than I. He kept me on track for sure. But no, that was exciting. And
measure twice.
And listen, it was, obviously we love the island, and it's a centerpiece of our family. That's where we have dinner and stuff and entertain now. But the experience of building that with, his name is Jackson, with Jackson, was something that will be with us forever. I mean, we did that together, and it's like, when I was 14, I built this thing with my dad, and it's really,
every time
special.
You interact with it all day long, so you can remember that time all the time.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything more valuable than that. I'm sorry.
Oh, for sure.
I don't care if they're not doing their homework. Like that's the education. That's where it is. And that's also the family time that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
Right.
We experienced that too. Our son, who's now a freshman in university in the States, has gone on a gap year to Israel. A lot of kids from here, from Jewish schools, will go study for a year in Israel and improve their, just get a sense of the world and improve their Judaic studies knowledge. And the year got cut short, of course, in March. They all came flying home on a moment's notice. And while that was really hard for him and all the kids his age, what it was great for was we had this found time with his siblings. We never had that before, where it was just us. And I'm saying this as a person who likes a lot of space, a lot of free time, a lot of time to think. I don't like when everybody's around in my face, but I was able to recognize that these 4 siblings, I've got 3 boys and a girl, and they just functioned as a unit in ways that I'd never seen before, because there were no friends to go to, there were no friends to come over. There were 0 obligations. Everything was stripped away. And suddenly they had this found time. And we had that straight through August, where we traveled together as a family to the US. And we got really emotional when we dropped them off. It was really hard, more because of that time we had usually you're just going, next milestone, next life stage. Okay, you're finished, you graduate, you go off to there. It would have been a case of, had this all not happened, he would have come home in June for the bar mitzvah, turned around the next day and gone to be a counselor, a leader on a 3-week program back in Israel. Come home, probably had a couple weeks on the ground, and then gone off to the US to university. But in the meantime, spent tons of time with his friends. And here they had a chance to bond as siblings. And of course, everybody goes bopping back to their own world when the world opens up again. But you couldn't have made that time happen otherwise. If you couldn't have forced that, it would not have happened if we were not. We had no option but to do this, and there was something really great about that.
I think about the sort of lasting memories and lasting connections that were made, right, during that period of time. Now, I think there's so many siblings that their bond is probably so much stronger now because they've had this time together that they wouldn't have had otherwise. Like this is sort of,
I hope so,
probably changed the shape of their relationship. I hope so too. That's my hope with our boys. And then when we sort of started opening up our bubble, actually still the only people that have been in the house with us are my sister and her kids and her husband. And so for a stretch of time, they were coming over once every week for like hours, like a whole day on a weekend. And gosh, just so much time for those 6 cousins to be together. My hope is that sort of strengthened some bond for them that will serve them, as they move through the rest of their childhood, because they don't live in the same town. They don't normally get to see each other as often as they did, but there's something really special about that time that they had together.
Yeah,
So
it's not just the time, it's the type of time. Like
yeah.
we lived through that together. It wasn't just
Mm-hmm.
a random, say, 2 months that you spend with somebody. It was 2 intense months where you have these same like cultural touchstones. My sister, actually, I have a sister who lives in Philly, and she's got a bunch of kids, and a sister who lives on the Upper West Side, and she's got a bunch of kids. And by May, my sister on the Upper West Side, who lives in a pretty small apartment, she's got 4 kids, and it was getting really tight and intense.
Yeah.
And one of her kids was on the iPad all the time, and she said, I have got to get these kids out of an apartment into like a place where they can run free. And it happened to be that her in-laws lived in Philly, but they had been in Florida because they're retired since December. So there was an empty house for them to go to. This house was around the corner from my other sister. So my 2 sisters and their combined 9 kids spent from May until yesterday together.
That's amazing.
It never would have happened otherwise.
Right.
For all sorts of reasons. And the older ones ran a camp for the younger ones.
That's
it
awesome.
Was just, yeah, it was awesome. And it was something that never would have happened otherwise. Was it perfect? No. What, did emotions run high? Sure. But, did they call me separately to say, she's driving me crazy. No, she's driving me crazy. And I'm easy because I'm far away. But that was only once each, because ultimately they realized that we're going to look back on this. Our kids are going to look back on this and say, remember that summer we spent together.
Right.
They'll have
right.
So I think I was going to ask you, Gila, about, sort of going through this with kids, and you have different kids at different ages and stages and whatnot. And I think you're sort of answering the question that I was going to ask. The question was going to be like, how do you really keep your kids from getting bogged down with all the negative stuff? The whole year started off weird. I know your kids are NBA fans, right? Just from looking at your Twitter and Instagram. And my boys are huge NBA fans and took like Kobe's death so hard. And that's just sort of started out the year. And then it just all went downhill from there. I mean, how do you go downhill from Kobe Bryant dying? But it went downhill.
Right, pandemic.
Yeah.
Right.
And
but wait, there's more.
There's more. Right. Hold on, 2020. We're not done.
Yeah. You forget that was, I think we only first heard about, the first time I heard about coronavirus or COVID-19, I remember the date. It was January 23rd. That was the first appearance it made in a newspaper. And Kobe passed away on, was it the 26th?
Yeah, I think right around there.
So
yeah,
it was kind of around the same time. Like we almost didn't have time to get over that, and then we're dealing with this, which of course started out as jokes about hand washing and Corona beer, and very quickly turned into something else. So how do I keep my, like, I don't know that I have kept them from getting bogged down. I think that different kids have different ranges of emotions and levels of anxiety and depression naturally, and I've always tried to tweak my interactions with them to their own individual needs. I think because they're all pretty close in age, they're all about 2 years apart, they functioned as a unit and could lean on each other a lot. But I think a lot of it also came down to watching me and my husband and seeing how we were dealing and we were reacting. And thank God, if we're lucky as hell, he has a job where he can work from home. I freelance. I actually probably got more articles written and published during lockdown than I had before because, the wheels were churning.
Right.
We're lucky that we were able to work from home, pay the bills. That would be a major cause of anxiety if we couldn't pay the bills. I know that there's a lot of that going around. So just seeing that everything was in the main okay, and their lives, although they've been altered, their basic human needs were being tended to, and then some. I think that went a long way. But there were times when, they would see one of us have a bit of a meltdown. There was definitely some screaming on my part. I would apologize for it. They all have their own bedrooms. They could retreat to their own bedrooms. We're very grateful for that. I think it's important to have space. I definitely drank more during lockdown. I wrote an article about it for Momtastic about drinking more. And again, I say this from a place of I'm fortunate that I can make jokes about drinking because I'm not an alcoholic and I don't have an addiction. which means that I was aware of how much I was having, and when it was time to stop, I stopped. And it was more the fun part of, I don't have to drive anywhere. I can drink a whole bottle of wine at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Recognizing that for a lot of people this time triggered a lot of eating disorders and drinking problems and addictions in general. I know people personally who've been affected by that. So to get back to your question, how did I support them and buffer them? The same way I would during normal times, which is just to pay attention and try to recognize when they needed space or when they needed me to lean in, not be so tied to meal times or what they were eating. Everybody ate a bit more junk. Everybody went to bed super late. Everybody watched too much Netflix. And I think that I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It was just about keeping the equilibrium. And ultimately, as I say, they're all still living through it, and they'll all probably carry whatever emotions come from it throughout the rest of their lives. I think that the mental health toll that this whole thing is going to take on the world, specifically kids of this generation, will be huge. It is huge. It'll be even huger, if that's a word. And they'll be studying it for a long time to come.
Yes.
And I don't know how to protect them from that except to say, this is your burden. This is your cross to bear. Your ancestors have been through other things that they've borne and survived.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a part of you now. And what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with this tough time? How are you going to make that a part of who you are and use it as a stepping stone instead of a stone that crushes you?
Right. I think that's a really healthy approach. You know, you're labeling it, you're identifying it, you're not minimizing it. And you're sort of empowering them to think about it, talk about it, and recognize that it is a big deal in their lives. And you're paying attention. And sometimes I think that's all we can do as parents, and that's a really important thing to do as parents, is to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Somebody once, when they were really young, I took a parenting class. I the school was offering some parenting course, and like 4 of us signed up, eager beavers,
Yep.
how to be great parents in one seminar. And the one thing that really stuck with me was that when they come home upset from school, you should ask them, is this something you want me to fix, or do you just want to vent and be listened to? And before that, my tendency would have been to say, how are you going to fix this?
Right.
We're going to find a way around. And I'd say 7 out of 10 times when I ask that question, the answer, especially for my daughter, is, I just want to get it off my chest. I just want you to listen. I don't want you to do anything to fix it. And that is important. People just want to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Not
just kids.
Sometimes you want to just vent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And once it's out, it's out.
And then you feel better, and you can kind of process it yourself and either figure out a solution or just sort of move on from it. But you're right. That listening piece is so powerful.
As a parent, it's definitely hard to remember that, because my go-to response is, all right, what do I need to do?
Indeed, that is your go-to response.
Who do I need to yell at?
Yeah, but that's also, I think, our parents' generation has been, my parents growing up never would have done that. It's like, go outside, come back at dinner time, the doors are all unlocked. We live in a different world. We live in a world where parenting, I didn't coin this term, but I've read it, that said that parenting has become a verb, something you do, and the burden is very much on us. So just like it's on us to make sure that they succeed and are diagnosed with the correct learning issues so that they can get the correct support, and it's all on us. Their happiness comes down to us. Their success academically and socially comes down to us. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying this is a diet
reality.
I was raised on as a parent without even reading the books. This is just what you hear. And that has made us into, I wouldn't say helicopter parents, but our instincts are to, how do I protect you? How do I fix this? You have to be happy. If I can't fix this and you're not happy, then I'm a bad parent. It's my fault. And that's just not true. Because a lot of the stuff that I've seen and I've been through in my life have made me a lot more of a capable and stable person, have led to a lot more successes, a lot more ability to not sweat the small stuff. So I think there's something to be said for experiencing tough stuff, and just saying as a parent sometimes, wow, that really sucks. It's okay to just say that really sucks. Some things just suck. And you say that sucks, and it feels good. If you tell me something bad that happened to you and I try to sugarcoat it or minimize it or tell you how, well, it's okay because it could be worse. No, like I tell you it sucks and you're like, yeah, it does. Okay, let's go eat a brownie.
Yes.
good.
Right.
Well, that validation, right? You're talking about validation and the power of being validated. And you personally, I can say that you have been there for me as someone that has validated concerns for me, right? So it was about a year ago. It was it was around a year ago. No, we're in September. I was thinking we were still in the summer. We're in September. Here's my
Right?
denial about the
What is
fall starting.
time?
Right.
Listen, I don't think the fall has officially started yet, so we can lean into
Okay,
the
so
fact it's still summer.
that's why it was still summer.
Yes.
It was last
No
summer
pumpkin
that
spice latte for me.
there you go. That I had my own breast cancer scare. And after,
Yep.
following you and knowing that you are such a big advocate for breast cancer awareness, I reached out to you, right? Like a total stranger. And you responded really quickly and validated what I was feeling and gave me advice and support. And that is so powerful, right? That validation, because people don't really know how to do that. Getting back to school, we don't really teach our kids how to be good listeners, how to just sort of be there and validate people's experiences. And so when we as adults can do that for each other, it's incredibly powerful. And so thank you for doing that, and your sort of presence as someone who speaks about the importance of breast cancer awareness and getting early screening and testing. That really has changed the course of my life, encouraged me to be really, what's the word I'm looking for?
Vigilant,
Exactly. Really vigilant. Encouraged some friends of mine to be really vigilant as well.
See, it's exponential.
Yeah, it really makes a difference. So tell us about that foray, that sort of passion that you have. Where is that at for you? How can sort of people get involved and do more?
Well, in a couple of weeks, right? It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, right? From when this
October.
Not for me though, because I'm still thinking it's June right now.
You
So
think
for me,
we're
that's
going
4
to
months
Mexico
away.
in a couple of days or something.
You can think whatever you want, lady. It's a pandemic. There are no rules.
Mm-hmm.
You can change your Zoom background to be Mexico, and
I like that.
You're there. What a time to be alive.
Right.
Yes, breast cancer gets its whole own month, unlike ice cream that gets, its own national day. Breast cancer is such a big deal, it gets a month. And first of all, I'm glad that you reached out to me, so thank you for that. I have to imagine that for every person that reaches out to me or to someone, there are tons who just don't, either because they're afraid or think that they wouldn't get a response. And this is the beauty of social media, is that someone shares an experience of any kind, and you say, "Oh, I see myself in that experience. Let me ask that person for help and support." And next thing you know, you've got a support group.
Right.
So the reason I'm passionate about it is because my mom died of breast cancer at 42, leaving behind 5 kids. I'm the oldest, and her mom died of breast and ovarian cancer at 49. So I was 20 when she died. And by the time she was diagnosed, I was 18. I was like, you know what? This was already in the early 90s. I said, something's got to change here. We've got to stop this. Got to stop this trend. So by the time I was 20, I became very vigilant about breast cancer screening, doing manual self-exams, learning how to check myself. I went for my first mammogram at 30 because she was diagnosed at 40, and you're supposed to go, your baseline should be 10 years before the nearest person to you was diagnosed. And at the time, the hospital didn't want to give me one. They said, no, we start at 40. I said, no, I'll be dead at 40. So we're doing this now. And I just always went for regular screenings, made it a part of my, my priority of my health. As I say, I'm the oldest of 5 kids. We're 4 sisters. So I was doing this also as a way of setting an example for them. Yeah. They had to learn how to be. We have no mom, we have no grandma. So I was going to show them, this is what you do. It's scary, but what's more scary is doing nothing.
Right.
So when I was in my 30s and having my 3rd child, I went for the gene testing, and you can test to see if you have one of the BRCA genes, BRCA, which stands for breast cancer. And there are 3. There's, I think, 2 BRCA1s and 1 BRCA2. And not surprisingly, I tested positive for it. But regardless of whether I tested positive for it or not, I had determined that I was going to do a prophylactic double mastectomy, the same surgery that Angelina Jolie did 3 years after me. So for all of you listening, you should just know that I did it first, and she stole my thunder.
Angelina copied you.
She copied me. She even had her ovaries out after me. I mean, if I ever meet her in the street, that is definitely what I'm going to talk to her about. She got a lot more press, but I know what ended up happening is after my youngest was born, that was my fourth child, I had a prophylactic double mastectomy, and we were planning on moving to London. I think I covered this in the last time we talked, so I'm not going to go into the whole story again. But the long and short of it is that by being preventative and having my breast tissue preventatively removed in that surgery, they detected early but aggressive cancer. So it didn't theoretically save my life. It did save my life. I went on to have chemo, my ovaries out, we moved to London, and I just decided that this can't have happened for nothing. And I realize that saving my life is not nothing, but I just needed to talk about it more. I'm not a shy person. I'm happy to share, but it seems that the more I talk about it, the more people, and when I say talk about it, I mean by giving talks, by being referred, people will refer their sisters, cousins, aunts, friends to me. Can my friend call you? Can my sister call you? And I'll establish a relationship with them, and they can speak as much or as little as they want with me. But the point is that it comes from personal experience, it comes from personal loss, and it comes from my personal experience in seeing the fruits of being preventative. So I want the whole world to be preventative. I'm not saying that everybody should go and have their breasts removed, but check yourself. Go to the doctor once a year, know your body, know what changes to look for. It's as simple as early detection. Early detection is key. So on Instagram, about a little over a year ago, I started a feature called Feel It on the First. I did not start that hashtag, but I jumped on the hashtag because it reminds people every first of the month to feel yourself, feel your breast, do a manual breast exam. And more than once, I've had people write to me to say, hey, thanks for these reminders. I wouldn't do it otherwise. 2 people wrote to say, because of these reminders, I found something and I went to the doctor.
Wow.
You reached out to me, and what that tells me is that if you can establish a connection with one person, and then that one person goes and tells one other person, and et cetera, who knows how many lives, not to be dramatic, I'm not like saving the world here, but if you can make a difference in one person's life, if you can change the outcome just by putting something on someone's radar, why wouldn't you do it? Especially if I'm comfortable doing it. There are people who are private about it, who are uncomfortable talking about it, and that's fine. But they can come to people like me for information. And I'll talk about it all day long because I know the difference it makes. 2 of my younger sisters, as a result of having seen what I went through, they would not have done the preventative surgery. But when they saw that, they went and got gene tested. They had the preventative surgery as well. Fine. So, for a lot of people, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. For me, every day is Breast Cancer Awareness Day. I've got scars all over my body. They use my stomach fat and muscle to refashion my boobs, and the scars remind me of what I did to stay here, what anybody can do to stay here if they just kind of keep things on their radar. It's about leaning into it and not shying away and being afraid of it. We have so much information available to us. Let's use it.
Yeah. Well, do you have advice for sort of pushing back or advocating within the medical community? I know you said that like doctors were said, or the hospital wasn't going to do a mammogram until you were 40, and you had to push back and say, no, I'll be dead by then. Do you have any advice about navigating that system? And have you seen the system change at all in the past few years?
So yes and yes are the answers to those questions. One is you've got to advocate for yourself. And if you can't advocate for yourself, take someone with you who can advocate for you. And that doesn't mean saying that you know better than doctors, but we do have a wealth of information available to us. Not only through the internet, which you want to be looking for the right information, not just going on WebMD and saying, I got that. Go into the situation with you or someone else having researched what your specific diagnosis is, what your options are. If you have a gut instinct and the doctor's saying otherwise, don't shy away. Just keep pushing your point, keep pushing your way, saying, is there another way? I feel strongly about this. Get a second opinion, get a third opinion if you can. I had to push to get that mammogram. I had to push my insurance to pay for it. And things have changed. I think now the understanding is more that younger women can and do get breast cancer. So starting screenings at 40 is maybe too late. Maybe for the general population, if you haven't got a family history or a reason, if you don't have the gene and you have no family history and you have no reason to think that you should be someone who needs screening, but you see one of my posts, feel it on the first, and you're in the shower and you feel something and you're 31, go get screened.
Right.
Forget all the other statistics. There are some things called outliers. Not everything is perfect, because I remember after they found the cancer in one of my breasts, I had to go back and have a node dissection to make sure that it hadn't spread to my nodes. And we were all pretty sure it hadn't spread to my nodes because it was quite early. And after I woke up in the OR, we asked my surgeon, what are the odds that has not spread based on what you've seen on the sample that you took out? And she said, there's a 90% chance that it has not spread. So that sounds pretty good, doesn't it? 10% is quite low. And in that moment, I knew, I'm like, it's in my nodes. I'm in the 10%. Because unless something is 100%, you've got to take all precautions.
Right.
There's no such thing as being too cautious, as far as I'm concerned. So my advice is advocate for yourself, or get someone to advocate for you, and stick to your guns. This is your life you're fighting for in your body. Be comfortable with your medical team. And have I seen things change? Yes, I have. And that's just because of experience and more information. And maybe the more people who are checking, the more people who are finding it at younger ages. And that's allowing the sample size to grow across a wider age range. So you're helping not only yourself, but you're helping the other 30 and 20-year-olds that come after you, who won't have to fight as hard.
Really kind of paving the way there.
Yeah. It's every advance you see, every medical advance, every technological advance, everything has come from somewhere, and then the next one builds on that. So don't mitigate your part in contributing to that trend moving in a different direction. Obviously, in the moment, you're not thinking about that. You're thinking, I've got to take care of me. I've got to stick around for my family. But if I'm the only 34-year-old that walks up with breast cancer, that's not interesting. But if 10 more, and then 10 more, and then 100 more, and then more and more come, and then younger ones come, that's interesting. And that's something that services and allowances will have to be provided for.
That makes sense. Yeah. I think as you're talking, I'm thinking about just the conversation. There's still so many women that don't talk about it, right? There's so many women that go for they find a lump, they go for a screening, they go for a biopsy, they go for testing, and they're in that space where the statistics, maybe the statistics are in your favor, but like you said, nothing's 100%. So they're walking around in that horrible waiting space, right? Where they're waiting for a biopsy result, or they're waiting for their biopsy and they've never gone through one before. And I know so many women who just kind of deal with that in silence because there still doesn't seem to be enough space or permission to talk about that openly. And so I love that you do talk about it so openly, and that more and more women are following and joining in the conversation, because there doesn't need to be silence around it. And when we are silent about something, there's shame around it, and it's just so much more difficult to deal with. And I think if people could just be open and honest with each other, gosh, this process would be a whole lot easier.
Yeah, it's shame, and there's the waiting room is the worst part. You mentioned it. You said it was called the waiting time in the waiting room. And somebody in a breast cancer organization called Charcheret, that I'm quite involved with, once used that term to explain to me what I was feeling, because I didn't tell my kids about all this until they were much older. It happened when they were younger. And I went through this 1 year period where I wanted to tell them, but I thought maybe it was too late, because they're older, or how are they going to react? And it was this awful in between stage where you don't rip off the Band-Aid. And I find that when people are waiting for scan results and blood test results and diagnoses and all these things, that's worse than knowing what you're dealing with.
Absolutely.
I'm speaking to a woman right now who contacted me on Instagram. I think I mentioned this to you earlier before we started, and it was, she'd reached out to a whole bunch of people saying, my name is so-and-so, I live in Arizona, I'm newly diagnosed, help, I need to talk to somebody. So I wrote, why wouldn't I write back to that? You're my people. What can I do for you? What would you like to know? And, her diagnosis is totally different to my diagnosis. And I can't speak to her medically, but I can speak to, the side effects of the chemo, and how to stick a wig on your bald head, and how to manage the nausea, and how to make yourself the center the ring theory, to make yourself the center of your world and not try to support and placate other people. Focus on yourself and use your energy and resources for yourself. And I can talk to her about all that. And, she can talk to me when she's waiting for results to come in.
Yes.
Because that's scary as hell. And she's got 2 little kids and not a terrific relationship with her partner. And so who else is she going to talk to? And she keeps saying, like, I can't believe you're talking to me. And I'm like, I can't believe you can't believe that the fate brought us together. Why wouldn't I be having this conversation with you? And if that goes any small way to alleviate her terror and her worry and her anxiety, forget the pandemic. She's going through this.
Right.
She's having to go through chemo in this weird time where she can't bring anyone in with her and she has to wear a mask. And I just can't see why. To me, that's no big thing. To me, that's no big thing. And if me talking about it, me being honest about it, and me having no reservations about being very graphic about, how things went down physically and what that meant for me at every step of the way, I'm happy to share it. And I'm happy to, be that person in her life, because she'll be that person in someone else's life. I told her,
exactly.
Just you wait. Fast forward, just you wait. You're going to be that person in someone else's life, and on and on. And that's what a network is.
Yes.
That's what a community is.
Yeah, that
I just
openness.
want everyone to check themselves. If there's one message anyone takes away from this, it's set a reminder in your calendar, in your phone, wherever you set your reminders once a month. I do feel it on the 1st because it's easy to remember when a new month comes in, but get into the habit of being aware and being vigilant. You don't have to obsess over it. You just have to have it on your radar and don't get blindsided.
Great advice. Great advice. So feel it Friday. Is that the hashtag?
It's hashtag feel it on the 1st.
Feel it on the 1st. Sorry.
So it's the 1st of every month. And let me tell you, no one ever knows what month or day or week it is. So if anything, it reminds you what month we're in, because you're always like, ooh, is it already still on the month? Yes. It's already September.
Yeah. Well, to your point, clearly I'm thinking it's June and I'm thinking it's a Friday right now. So that's where my brain is.
Well, speaking of my house.
Speaking of kind of sharing and being open about things, you actually have a new book out there. This is pretty exciting. Want to tell us and tell everybody about this wonderful thing that kind of came to be in the midst of all of the pandemic stuff that's going on? You had some pretty exciting news.
Yes. So if there was video, I'd hold up a copy of my book, but it is a book called I Just Want to Hang Out with You. And it's actually a collection of essays edited by Jen Mann. Jen is a New York Times bestselling author who has a bunch of her own books out there, but this is the 7th in a series of collections of essays. And it's by a bunch of moms who have teenage children. And the anthologies that came before were all, I think one was called I Just Want to Pee Alone, and I Just Want to Pee Alone Too. And it was sort of books about moms who had little kids who just wanted to find some space. And now she's bringing it full circle and saying, now that you're teenagers and you want to spread your wings and you've got your own world, your own lives, I find myself drawn to you more. I want to spend more time with you. Why don't you want to hang out? The irony, of course, is that this book was made available for sale on August 25th, sort of at the end of a very long lockdown. So all we've done is spend time with our teenagers. Right. but the theme of the book is moms who are talking about, difficulties or successes or ways that they can reconnect with their kids. And the story that I contributed is called TGIF, Thank God It's Friday, and it's about Shabbat, because I'm Jewish and I observe the Sabbath, which we call Shabbat, every Friday. And I talk about Shabbat as being this great way to reconnect with family. So when the kids were little, we were all on the same schedule and around the same table every Friday night, sharing stories about school, and they kind of had nowhere else to be because they were little kids. But as the kids got older and they got phones and the social media came to be, they were allowed to travel to different places and see their friends. It's you have to work harder to establish a connection. So one thing that I'm grateful for as a Sabbath observer is that we are strict Sabbath observers in that we don't use any electricity or technology. We don't drive anywhere for a 25-hour period each weekend. For Shabbat, it's about family time and prayer and reflection and it has to do with the 7 days of creation, and on the seventh one, God rested. So we're resting, but we're not like literally sleeping. We're just shutting out the outside world. So my essay is kind of about how Shabbat has allowed us to do that. But of course, because it's a pandemic, I have to mention the pandemic in the essay, because it's not like people who read this for years to come aren't going to know what I'm talking about.
Right.
And so somebody might ask, well, why would you need that at a time when everyone's been locked home together anyway? One could argue that the pandemic and lockdown has made everyone spend tons of time, too much time with each other. And I actually had to think about this for a long time, because I thought, yeah, well, why do we need this every weekend? Why did Shabbat still feel so important and meaningful and necessary? And it's because even on lockdown, if you've got teens, they've all got their devices, they're all wired into whatever programs they're watching, to whoever they're talking to whatever schoolwork they have to do. They can wander off into their own rooms, into their own worlds, and they're not really together. It's the disconnecting to reconnect that allows you to have that special time together.
Yes.
Are we perfect around the table and we all say only nice things to each other and let everyone speak in turn and no one interrupts each other? Absolutely not. Sometimes it gets really heated. Sometimes it's me. But the fact is that just because you're together in the physical space doesn't mean that you're together and connecting.
Yep.
And so my essay is about how to reconnect by shutting everything else out, and how I'm fortunate enough to have this thing called Shabbat to allow me to do that. But the book is called I Just Want to Hang Out With You. It is available everywhere: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, basically anywhere you could buy a book. If you guys want to post a link to it,
we will, for sure.
You should do that. There are a lot of great essays in there. I've actually read all the other moms' essays, and they're relatable, they're poignant, they're funny, they're silly, but they all make you realize. I think the point of Jen's books is to just make you feel like, oh yeah, it's not just me. Okay, this is all right. I'm not alone. Everyone else. It's all of us.
It's also available on iBooks, because that's where we bought it. So I know that for sure. And I skipped right to your chapter ahead of this interview. I loved it, by the way.
Thank you.
And I just have to say, it's so relatable to what I think everybody is dealing with. We get eye rolls a lot every time we say, okay, put your phones away. Like, we try to get around the new kitchen island and have dinner as much as we can. But still, it's like, okay, here's the rule. Don't touch your phone.
Yeah.
We're going to talk and actually be together. And no, it's very inspiring. And I think that's something that we can all, but I'm guilty of it too. It's not just the boys, it's like, I have my phone. Maybe I should put that away too, and just completely disconnect so we can connect. Like, disconnect so you can connect. Right.
Yeah. And I didn't write that actually. My husband he was proofreading the essay, and I was struggling with how to convey what Shabbat is without sounding, otherworldly and weird and preachy. And he said that he had heard from another rabbi who gave a lecture that Shabbat is disconnecting to reconnect. You're not shutting off. You're just focusing your attention elsewhere. And I've had a rule actually almost from day one about phones at the table, and the rule is there are no phones at the table. And sometimes my husband will bring the phone to the table and say, well, it's for work. And I'm like, well, that's just not okay. Then go eat your supper in your office. There just shouldn't be in my house a phone at the table, because and I'm talking during the week, however long that lasts, it could be 5 minutes, it could be a half an hour.
Right.
That's if it's a hard and fast rule, and that's what Shabbat is. Like, that's what we do. This is what we do. It's non-negotiable. We can't keep it on any other day of the week. It happens when it happens, and this is how we keep it. And for the you may argue that there are some downsides, which is being cut off, but to me those are the upsides. Whatever's waiting for you on the other side. Like, we didn't find out about Chadwick Boseman passing away until hours after everyone else, because it happened on a Saturday. But we still found out, right? And it was still just as gut-wrenching and horrible. But did we have to know the minute that it happened? There are a lot of things that we just don't have to know the minute that they happen. And it's about, what are you willing to give up in order to gain something else? And I can say to any parents out there who struggle with this, if you just make one simple rule: no phones at the table. Table time is free time. Table time is together time. Even if everyone just stares into space or stares at each other, it's uninterrupted. It's more pure introspective time.
Yeah,
but
I love that.
We have to set the example. That's the hard part.
Yes, yes, it is.
That's why
Yes.
I eat my chocolate in secret in the bathroom. My chocolate
Right.
snack, don't worry, they're not going to listen to this podcast.
I love it. So Josh, you hear that? No phones at the dinner table?
I know. I told you I'm just as bad as the boys.
He's the most guilty.
I have one of those work phones too I know. I know.
He's on call. He's on call 24/7 every other month for phone calls, and I always say it could wait 5 minutes if it's during dinner time. It'll be okay. They can wait 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So we're working on that. So thank you, Gila.
Tell you well, I'm not telling you what to do, and it's not perfect here, and the rules I've tried to implement have sometimes worked, sometimes haven't. Sometimes I've had to invest more energy than I want to, making sure that they're adhered to. But the bottom line is that time moves quickly, as you know. I just sent my oldest kid off to college. Yep. My next one's down to 17, 15, and 13, and I can already see the writing on the wall. I'm going to blink, and they're out. Yep. So if we don't take this time now, before they go off and establish their own adult lives with their own families, we're not going to get it back.
Exactly.
So it's just not worth it. Just put the phone in your car or outside, or get rid of it.
I like that idea. I like that idea. Yeah, our oldest reminds us all the time about how quickly things are going to move along. The other day he was like, in about 14 months, I'm going to have my license. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, in 3 years, I'll be 18. I'm like, oh. Seriously, I'm getting palpitations. Can you please stop?
I know yesterday
a lot faster than that, by the way.
Well, yesterday Facebook reminded me that he got on the kindergarten bus for the first time 9 years ago. Oh my gosh. And he's got 3 years left before he graduates. So that's I had a third of the time that existed between when he got on that bus, which I remember as if it were yesterday, to yesterday. It's just crazy how quickly time goes. So we do have
memories should come with a trigger warning.
They really should. They really should. Because I don't go into them to look at them, because often it's I don't know. There are things like that'll make me go oh, time is moving so fast. But sometimes they just pop up.
Yeah, it's evil. Yeah. Facebook's
evil.
Sometimes they're from last week. I'm like, I remember Facebook. It was only last week. Right. I'm not that dumb.
Well, speaking of social media and spending time with your teens, you did this thing that terrifies me during quarantine. You actually made the foray into TikTok. And I will back up to say, Josh and I did make a few TikToks on some nights during quarantine. I remember
those
our kids
will not
tried.
See the light of day, though. Those are.
Yeah,
they we're tried. Bury those at the phone in the backyard.
They tried desperately to teach us some of the TikTok dances. I think one did go up. And we've been thinking about having changing perspectives sort of move into the TikTok world, because I am seeing a lot of businesses actually move into there. And I know Gary Vee talked about that a year and a half ago, that was sort of the next frontier. And I was like, no way, there's no way I'm doing that. But you were brave enough to do it. And you are very clever. And I love watching your TikToks. I know things sort of slowed down. TikTok was going to be shut down. There was all the privacy stuff. But what made you sort of lean into TikTok, and what was that like for you?
Yeah, I can't believe I did it either. I was like you. I was like, this app is for 13-year-olds. I'll never get on there. And all I knew of TikTok was it's a place that, young teens and tweens go to dance.
Right.
And I do love to dance, but my daughter's the real dancer in the family. She's phenomenal. So I was not about to even try that out. But then, lockdown changed a lot of us in a lot of ways. And I saw people getting on the app, and everyone gets on the same way. First, they check it out and they think, this is fun. Let me explore a bit. I'm just here to look at things. I'm not here to create content. But actually, I've been reading a lot about, by business owners, by content creators, by professionals, about how TikTok was the next frontier, and whether or not that was true, whether that was sort of just PR at all. What the lockdown did is it turbo blasted it into the future, and whatever it was on the road to doing suddenly became a reality, and everybody had a lot of time to create and film. And it's not that everyone's on there. There's grandparents and great grandparents on there with millions of followers. There's an audience for everyone. There's something for every audience. And what's interesting is that you can, if you want to, you can grow your audience fairly quickly. It's totally different to Instagram in terms of its algorithms. for me, I'm not a shy person. I love to perform. I love to do stupid things and make people laugh. And I love using their lip sync videos. It's less about the dance and more about the lip syncing. And you can lip sync to a recording and use those words or that audio to make your own points. You can either literally copy someone else's video, or you can put your own spin on it. And like there was this one, I don't know, I'm sure you've seen it, where this voice is going, "Don't do it, girl." She's like, "Oh, I'm not gonna do it. I'm just thinking about it. I'm not gonna do it." And then the next, she cuts over to, she goes, "I did it." And you can apply that to anything from dyeing your hair to shaving your eyebrow to, eating a whole cake, anything. And the collaborative nature of TikTok is what makes it fun. It's like, oh, you did this, I'm going to riff on that. You're supposed to be copying. I think unlike Facebook and Instagram, where people get very territorial and upset if you quote unquote steal content, which there should be laws against, but that's a whole nother podcast for another time. On TikTok, you're just taking songs and recordings and things that people have put up and putting your own spin on it. It's a lot of fun. So during lockdown, it was more of a fun thing, like let's all get stupid and act silly. But I see quite a lot of businesses and TikTok social media experts who got on there and figured out a way to manipulate the algorithm, which essentially comes down to just posting a lot. If you post a lot of videos 3 or 4 times a day, you're going to grow. But that's not what I'm there for. Like I'm not a short filmmaker.
Right.
I have a household to run and writing just a bit, whatever. But it's fun, and the filters are fun, and you just feel like you're part of this, interesting, different, youthful community. And suddenly nothing's off limits. Nothing is not age appropriate. 13-year-olds are doing the same. Well, let me back up a second. There's still a world of teens and tweens who are doing dances that a lot of people in my demographic are not foraying into. We can try, and we either succeed or don't, and look silly doing it or don't. But I see a lot of professionals on there, a lot of doctors and lawyers and judges and teachers, all who have something really interesting to say, and they're delivering their message in what's just a fresh, new, digestible medium. Through a 10-second clip, they're able to tell you, there's this one doctor who is a gastroenterologist, and she just gives you really good, useful gastro health tips through a 10-second clip that involves a song, her doing a cute little dance, and her posting copy across the screen at odd intervals. And suddenly it's a world where you can learn things, and you can open up your mind, and not everything has to be dry and boring, which goes back to our talk about education. You can teach someone the same thing in a boring way or a fun way.
True.
My kids and I are sharing TikToks with each other. At first, they were totally cringed out that I was on TikTok, but no, Mom, absolutely not. I said, you know what, kids? I'm living through this pandemic too. I'm at home. I want to try this out. And it's not that I was ever bored, because I can read and read and read and read till the cows come home, but there's no end to the amount that I can read. So it wasn't a matter of finding something to do. It was just, let me see how I can connect with an audience, both on TikTok and by migrating the TikToks over to Instagram. By sharing them there. And I see a lot of people sharing both theirs, but other content. It's like sharing memes. Like I found this hilarious TikTok, I'm going to share it with you. Or I found this moving, educational, poignant TikTok, I'm going to share it with you. And so I hadn't created since early July, because I got nervous about that whole privacy scare with China, and I wanted to set a good example for my kids. I said, you guys have to delete the app. So I deleted the app, and then by August, we were all like, we know you're back on the app, and I know you're back. Like we're all just back on it. Come on, let's just get back on it. I mean, everyone else is having fun. Why shouldn't we have fun? So, but I hadn't created. I sort of lost my mojo, and now I'm trying to get it back. Especially with the book out. I made my first TikTok yesterday, where you can do a duet. Like you can take someone's TikTok and do a split screen where you're either dancing alongside them or reacting or responding, like a Brady Bunch style thing where you're looking up or looking sideways. And I took one that I put up back in June, saying, I did like a little dance where the copy said, hey, an essay that I wrote was accepted into this book, and so in August I'm going to be a published author in a New York Times bestselling author book. How exciting. So I duetted myself next to that original one of me holding the book, and like,
I love it.
That's awesome.
This is my book. There's no end to the creativity. Everyone's a movie maker. and anyone's TikTok can go viral at any time. Mine don't, but that's fine. I enjoy it. My audience enjoys it. Any individual like you, anyone who says, I really like watching them, they're funny, they make me smile, that's why I'll keep making them.
Yeah. Yes, definitely keep making them. I love them.
For you guys.
For us. Just for us. Yeah.
Jenny, it's time for us to really get into TikTok. We have to, changing perspectives needs to make the first post.
Listen, I drafted an idea. I have a bunch of ideas. I'm working on migrating the website a little bit, making some changes to our website. And then once that tedious work is done, TikTok is next.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout.
It's also an interesting sort of experiment in learning a new technology.
Yes.
You're learning about how to get the sounds you want, how to edit. You can edit things down to a second. I've got one TikTok that I made probably back in April or May, where it's like from Family Guy, Stewie, he goes, Mom,
Yes.
Mommy. So I made one where on every single ma, I was in the middle of doing something in my house and I looked up sort of annoyed. And that was a really interesting process because it actually took a long time to make because you have to edit so precisely, otherwise your timings are off. So there's just a lot to learn. Even before you publish something, there's a lot of ways you can stretch yourself and push yourself into learning this new media. And I think ultimately what you're going to create will be fresher for your audience to see. And if you're going to start streaming and putting things up with video, that's what they want to see. Our brains are already trained to recognize the TikTok, such that Instagram has come up with Reels. Instagram Reels, and they're trying to imitate TikTok. It ain't there. They'll keep trying, and they'll probably get there eventually. But right now, it's just not. There's just something that makes it really easy for even me, total tech moron, to make a fun, well-edited video clip.
All right. Well, stay tuned.
Yes.
That's our next foray.
Well, before we wrap up, Jenny, I have something else to ask or say about the book. Which, as just a reminder for everybody, I just want to hang out with you. Hilarious stories from moms who just want to spend time with their kids. That's the title, or then the little tagline at the top. Your article, the TJIF article, you led off with a reference to the TV show Out of This World. Oh my God! So I totally remember that show, and then I fell down this. I thought you'd be tickled by this. I fell down this weird IMDb rabbit hole about like where everybody is now that was on that show.
Oh God!
I thought you'd just get a kick out of that, but that was a fun reference to kick off your article about.
It was a great show.
Yeah, it reminded. I always got it confused with not confused, but I connected it to what was the other show, Jenny? We were talking about
Small Wonder.
Small Wonder.
I knew you were going to say Small Wonder because a lot of people, me also, like I kept, I don't know why we mixed those two shows up, probably because they were on at the same time.
Similar premise.
Totally unrealistic.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's the premise.
But
fantastic.
Can you imagine as a parent, if you could just put your two fingertips together and freeze time, like I think you'd either get so much more done or so much less done. Like you'd either use it to do nothing or to suddenly do everything. And I guess
it would depend on the day.
Magic.
Yeah.
And so if you want to learn more about my obsession with Small Wonder, Out of This World, read my essay in the book.
Yes.
I just want to hang out with you.
And I can't recommend it enough. And just to go off what you said, there's so many great articles in here and essays. And I read, right after I read yours, Gila, I read the 100% absolutely true story of how my kid accidentally joined a cartel, which it was hilarious and so funny and so kind of real and scary too. But again,
that's good. If you saw that online, you'd click on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, for sure.
She's very careful. Jen Mann, the editor, is quite particular about what she wants to see in her book.
Yeah.
And that's got to be eye catching.
Yeah. No. Both of these are very eye catching.
So, thank you for buying and thank you for reading.
No, I can't.
Thank you for writing it.
We can't recommend it enough, and we'll post a couple links to everybody so you can access that. And
thank you.
Yeah, we're excited. So go ahead, Jenny.
And your social medias. So we'll post links to.
Well, why don't you go
I don't actually think I follow you on Twitter, so I'll have to add you to Twitter.
I do.
So I'll make it easy. It's all at Gila Pfeffer. I recently changed. My handle used to be at the mom who knew too much, and in August I had an epiphany and said, let's just make it simple across the board. And that's who I am. I am Gila Pfeffer, and I write under that name. So I wanted there to be some you just make it easier to find me. So it's all at Gila Pfeffer. The website is www.themomwhoknewtoomuch with hyphens in between. But otherwise, there's not a lot of Gila Pfeffers out there. That's the good news.
Yeah, you got a good name.
I used to not like my name. I used to be like, I want to change it to something glamorous like Zoe. And my friends were like, why? There's just one of you. And then I said, yes, you are right.
Yes. Now you've leaned into your name, which is fantastic.
So hey man, I'm in my 40s. I'm leaning into a lot of things.
Yes, that happens when we reach 40, doesn't it? Well, we've spent almost 2 hours with you. You are just so amazing to talk to. So much fun each time we talk to you. So
I
thank
love talking to you guys too. Thanks for reaching out.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us again. And we'll have to have you back again.
Yeah, so last time we spoke, you said we want to have you on the show again, and here we are.
We did it.
We are. We kept our promise.
Check that off your list.
Jenny, first repeat guest, I think, right?
Yes, first repeat guest. Yes, awesome. And first guest after a long break of guests from the pandemic. So,
is there like a sticker or a badge or
we'll put one together?
Yes, we will.
Or something. Sure. I'll just wait by the mailbox.
Jenny, we might have to send her some Changing Perspectives merch, actually. As a thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why you haven't already. I didn't know there was merch.
There is merch.
There's merch, yeah, and there's changes coming with that too. So much on my brain. I need the boys to go back to school so that I can. That's when my creative brain works best actually at a Starbucks. But Starbucks are still not open. Like I love to sit in a Starbucks and write. Something about the noise behind us, just sort of the hustle and bustle, the smell of coffee, and I've really, really missed that. So I need to get back to a Starbucks at some point, and that's where my creative brain works. But be on the lookout for other stuff.
I hope you get back there when it's the right time and it's safe. And I hope that your kids have a great back to school. I hope it's safe and fun, and they feel like they are picking up where they left off. And I just hope it's a positive experience for everyone. And just remember that whatever happens, we got this. We can handle it.
Yes, we will get through.
We can change perspectives.
There you go.
And it's going to be okay.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much, Gila. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. It's so much fun.
Take care.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jenny, how fun is it to talk to Gila?
I love talking to her.
You could talk to Gila for hours and hours.
But you kind of can. You can follow her on her social media. Yes. She's very active on she was active for a while on TikTok. I haven't been on TikTok.
She just had a brand new video 5 days ago. 5 or 6 days ago.
I haven't been on TikTok, I think, in like a week and a half.
Yeah.
Changing Perspectives on TikTok is coming.
Yes.
And so I think
teaser.
I think now I haven't gone on TikTok because every time I go on it, it's like pressure, like just do it, Jenny. So it's coming at some point. So she was very active on TikTok, but she's really active on Twitter.
Very.
And we need positive content on Twitter.
Yes. You can find her everywhere as Gila Pfeffer.
Yeah.
So Instagram,
that's
Twitter,
Pfeffer,
Facebook, and TikTok.
Right.
But her website, which is her blog website is still sort of her old handle, which is The Mom Who Knew Too Much. And it's themomwhoknewtoomuch.com. And in between each letter, there's a hyphen. Between each word, there's a hyphen. So the hyphen mom, etc. And of course, we will be sharing a link to I Just Want to Hang Alone. I just want to hang out with you. The link is weird. I was reading from the link. I shouldn't do that. I just want to hang out with you, which we talked about in the interviews, so we can't recommend it enough. Available everywhere where you can get books. So check out I Just Want to Hang Out with You. Exciting stuff.
Totally.
Do you have anything else to add, Jenny?
Nope, that was it.
All right, everybody. Thank you so very much for joining us. That is going to do it for today. For today's show notes links, you can check out themomwhoknewtoomuch.com and the link to buy the book. I Just Want to Hang Out with You. Please follow us on Facebook, everybody, at Changing Perspectives Podcast, and on Instagram at Changing Perspectives Blog. You can send us an email to info@changingperspectivesonline.com. Once again, that new email address is info@changingperspectivesonline.com. You can also visit our website by going to changingperspectivesonline.com. And while you're there, don't forget to visit that shop to check out all that Changing Perspectives merchandise. Go ahead and subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode, and we will see you next time. Say bye, Jenny.
Bye, Jenny.
The Changing Perspectives podcast is produced, recorded, and edited by Dizzy Bird Studios. Copyright 2020. Please visit Dizzy Bird Studios on Facebook. Facebook.com/Dizzy Bird Studios.